The Reserve Bank considered, it seems, or the conventional wisdom is that it did consider raising rates last month. But if this is so weak and all the data is pointing to families cutting back, really not being able to cut any further because, as you point out, they're essentials like food, isn't the argument that we actually need a rate cut?
Yeah, well, that's the argument. But the reality is that while inflation remains stubbornly high, and if it's not coming down, and if you see if this retail number jumps, because they do jump around the place a bit, then under those circumstances, the Reserve Bank has got an argument to say, well, maybe you do need to actually quell the demand even more. But there's more and more anecdotal signs by the day that really times are getting tougher out there for families. And the toughest part is when you start to see jobs being cut. So Telstra has cut jobs in the last, Lend-Lease yesterday said a lot of jobs will be going in the future. And so big companies are starting to let go workers. If that's the case, then those forecasts of potentially 100,000 people losing a job over the next 12 months will come to fruition. But this is Fitch Ratings, one of the three ratings agencies. It gives Australia its credit rating. And it said today pretty much there's a strong chance that they thought the initial rate cut would be pushed back into late 2024. And the budget has modestly increased this risk. In other words, effectively by the government and its own spending, that really in some ways and taking some pressure off the inflation rate, that they could very much also mean that the first rate cuts don't come until a little bit later. And this is broadly the expectation of any sort of move in interest rates. And really sort of, to be honest, at the moment, the markets are saying there is almost no chance of an interest rate cut anytime soon.
Well, there you go. So the economy's slowing, not fast enough, I guess, if you're looking for an interest rate cut. But what other evidence are you looking at here, Ross? What other data?
I'll tell you one other thing which is interesting is car sales. So we look at car sales, which have historically been very, very strong, especially coming out of the pandemic when there were supply chain issues, which meant there were fewer cars in the Australian system. And remember, one of the initial causes of inflation was used cars because people suddenly started to buy used cars rather than new cars. So the price there went up. Well, this is Peter Warren Auto came out with basically a profit upgrade today, which they've downgraded. And the reason is they're saying the level of customer demand for new vehicles has reduced as a result of cost of living pressures. Now, Peter Warren is also being affected, as other car dealers are, by higher interest rates and by all of a sudden a glut of new cars coming into the market. And so all of a sudden those long queues, 18-month and 12-month queues for people to be able to get cars, well, they're all disappearing very rapidly. And so the reality is one of the big discretionary purchases that a family or a business has got is buying a vehicle. And right now the evidence is there with Peter Warren at least as one, which says really the demand is starting to fall back again. Interesting.
So what about the markets? They're taking all of this news in its stride?
They always do, don't they, really, Laura? You know the way it works. Anyway, let's have a look at some of them and see. It's not going to be too bad out there on the ASX day. It was a cracking day yesterday. The market today here has followed the Wall Street market, again up by just a little bit, up by 5 points. Overseas markets pretty modest. There had been a holiday, of course, as well overseas. If we go forward and have a look at the Aussie dollar, it's been a little stronger. Again, this anticipation of higher interest rates or higher for longer than perhaps other parts of the world. So 66 and 2/3 US cents, give or take, is the Aussie dollar. The other one I want to show you today, the Japanese yen. Have a look at that Japanese yen, 104.3. So that historically is very, very high. And so here's my small tip for you this morning, Laura. If you're going travelling any time in the near future, I notice there's some decent fares around the place, but Japan is one of the cheapest destinations for Australia to visit right now.
So just hypothetically, would you buy Japanese yen now in anticipation of that holiday to manifest it in the universe?
So just theoretically, if I was thinking about that theoretically, the answer is absolutely yes.
Okay, wonderful. Good to know. Thank you.